hope you've been enjoying the director's chat so far, but a rare alignment happened this week, which is the week before the stream you're watching right now, where we saw someone haunting the aisles at CCP Reykjavik, and that person would be CCP Collins, the game director for EVE Vanguard. And the people have been able to watch the interview so far with CCP Akami, CCP Berger, and CCP Ratati. But we thought, since we had you, let's snatch you and bring you into the studio.
I flew all the way here, hoping that you'd find me accidentally in the halls.
Yeah, we just saw you and yoink to talk about EVE Vanguard a little bit during this director's chat. So we don't want to leave that out because it's been a few months now since Operation Nemesis, I think.
Yeah, November. Yeah.
November, which was the last time players had really gotten their hands on with the game. And wanted to ask you, like, how did Operation Nemesis go from your perspective in the London studio? And what have you been sort of like, I know we've had Christmas and some people have hopefully had a well-earned break, but what have you been cooking in the interim since Operation Nemesis wrapped up?
Yeah, Operation Nemesis was massive for us in the sense it was our most comprehensive test that we'd ran in pre-alpha to date, right? The amount of features that we had in it, the stories that we were trying to tell, the type of experience that we were trying to create for new people who hadn't come in and played Vanguard before as well. All in the sense of just building up huge beds of data and feedback that we can kind of take forwards into improving the game and seeing where we need to focus in more on and where we need to focus less. So for us, it was extremely successful in that all that feedback and that the data that we got back was incredibly useful for us to realize what's working and what's not working. This is why we run these tests, right? We know this isn't perfect. It's a collection of ideas. We're in pre-alpha. There's a lot of prototypes in there. There's a lot of kind of placeholder things, and seeing what people respond well to and what people don't respond well to, how much it can keep people engaged in the experience and how long we can keep people playing the game and engaged for was like a huge reason why we ran Operation Nemesis. And kind of introducing people to some of the themes and the storylines that we want to start telling as well is the Vanguard start building up a stronger presence in New Eden. So getting all of that feedback and data back was absolutely incredible. It's the most amount of feedback that we've ever received in a test, and putting the data alongside that, because sometimes people tell you what they don't like, but sometimes you need to see it. You need to see it in the data. What people say they don't like and how they play the game are two very different things sometimes.
We see that all the time in like EVE Online as well. Players will be telling us one thing about a feature or something, and then when you look at the data, it's not necessarily congruent. It's not necessarily that the players are being dishonest about it. It's just that sometimes you get a little bit of tunnel vision. You get focused on a certain gripe or a certain feature, and you sort of forget about how that applies more broadly to the game.
Exactly, and it works both ways. Like, we can't just look at the data as well. We need to, what we say, the qualitative and the quantitative data that we get on is really important part of the experience. So we did a lot after Operation Nemesis of reviewing that, doing a lot of analysis on the data to see how people were playing, how people were sticking around, what was kind of the common threads that were leading to people enjoying and playing the game for long periods of time, what were the common threads that were leaving people to kind of leave early, and what were some of the complaints that we're doing. We looked at a lot of our own individual, our inside community that we have on Discord, our VIPs. We looked at a lot of streamers and influencers that were playing the game, and a lot of feedback that we got from new people that had never played the game before and are even new to the universe, which is fantastic. And I think if we think about what we've been doing since then, is getting a lot of that feedback and kind of analyzing what we need to be doing next. A lot of the feedback was telling us that certain parts of the core experience are just not quite there yet. That real center of the running and gunning, having a gun in your hand and feeling that fantasy of being a war clone in this universe. We're still working towards that, but we haven't quite punched through getting that feeling and getting that fantasy and getting that kind of what it should feel like to be in this universe, this kind of on the knife edge of all-out war, and making that gun feel responsive and the enemies that you're shooting at feel human and like opportunistic. There's still a lot of work that we need to do there. There's a lot in the experience that started to really positively shine through, like the addition of expeditions and sending people on these kind of more structured missions in the worlds and different environments that they can go down to was all being positively received. So we're just now focusing on the next steps as we start thinking about a really important step of what coming out of pre-alpha looks like and taking the next bold steps into making an alpha version of Vanguard.
I think a lot of people have probably, because the development of Vanguard has been so sort of like open and we've involved players from a very early stage, I'm sure a lot of people have gotten a taste of what the actual process of game development looks like. Because I remember before I was involved in the industry, I think of alpha as kind of like the white box scratch build starting point. But that's actually quite far along the development process. There's so much that has to happen before that. And Vanguard has been working through that pre-alpha phase now for a couple of years.
Yeah, people forget how early on we still are with Vanguard. You know, pre-alpha, in modern day, that would never see the light of day. You would never be playing a pre-alpha in a public playtest. You'd maybe be seeing a late stage alpha as a game moves into beta. So I think sometimes people forget how early we still are in this journey. So I think we have been in pre-alpha now since we announced, what was it, FanFest 2023, I want to say. So we think it is time now. We've got all the necessary data. We've had some really great experiments in pre-alpha and types of features and experiences that we want to have in the game. But we are ready now to take that next step. And the team have started pre-production on working towards what an alpha version of Vanguard looks like.
That's cool. A question that sort of comes up from time to time. Is there anything you can tell us about how the connection between EVE Online and EVE Vanguard is shaping up? Like, how will those two universes influence each other from a gameplay perspective?
I'd like that. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be
We're adding a Game Boy into Vanguard.
Sick.
I don't want to go into too many details right now because there's still a lot that we need to figure out. We've done a lot of experiments over pre-alpha into things that feel a bit more economic, that feel, when we added the Insurgency PvP mode into the game, that was having an impact on Insurgency. The whole sense that as a Vanguard and the battles that you're going through are contributing to the warfare that exists in the universe. That's the angle that we feel is the coolest, and it fills into the fantasy. I'm an operative Warclone. Feeding into the warfare that's happening in the universe is the angle that we want to go down. And we're going to be announcing more details about that connection across two games, working very closely with CCP Collins and the like. And we're hoping, we're aiming for it FanFest this year to talk a lot more about that connection. That will be part of the experience as we work towards an early access in 2027.
Yeah, I was talking to CCP Monty before about some of the plans we've got for FanFest, and it sounds like it's going to be a really, really cool event this year. I can't wait to hear more about that Vanguard EVE connection then.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing I had to ask for you to ask was, when will players be able to get their hands on EVE Vanguard next? Yeah,
so as we work towards early access, we are taking that next steps of taking Vanguard into alpha. What we want people to play next is that core alpha experience. It's not something that feels a bit more release ready, a lot more polished version versus what people have been playing in pre-alpha, which is kind of a lot of prototypes and ideas. We want to create something that feels more solid and is a more polished representation of the game that we want to make. So we will be announcing a date at FanFest, but we're aiming for summer this year. We'll be running a Steam playtest, which will be the first playtest of Vanguard as an alpha.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's about it. We'll get back to the other directors for the rest of the sort of EVE flavored directors chat, but it's been great to catch up with you and hear about what's happening with Vanguard. So I'll hand it back over to CCP Swift and those other guys, and you'll be hearing more from this guy at FanFest in a couple of months.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.